This is Dogs of the Past. Long before Mastiffs became household names, before kennel clubs, breed standards, softer temperaments, and record-breaking weights, there was a mountain dog in ancient Greece that quietly shaped the future of some of the largest breeds on Earth. It didn't live in castles, nor did it start in arenas. It began in the mountains. In the northwest corner of Greece lay Epirus, a harsh, rugged land of steep hills, thick forests, and long winters. This wasn't the polished marble world people imagine when they think of ancient Greece. Epirus was raw, isolated, dangerous. Wolves moved through the valleys. Bears roamed the highlands. Survival here demanded toughness. The people who lived there were known as the Molossians. They were a powerful tribal group whose influence stretched across the region for centuries. Their kings claimed descent from Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles, tying their identity to Homeric legend. Whether that lineage was political myth or genuine belief, one thing is clear. They saw themselves as warriors, but their real strength wasn't just in battle. It was in farming, more specifically in livestock. Sheep and cattle were wealth in Epirus. Flocks meant food, trade, power, and in wolf country, unprotected flocks didn't last long in this time. So the Molossians did what working cultures always do when survival is on the line. They bred a solution. Over generations, they selected for size, strength, territorial instinct, and courage. They needed a dog that wouldn't panic in the dark. A dog that would stand its ground against predators. A dog that could operate independently across mountainous terrain without constant supervision, as only the strongest would survive. That dog became known as the writers in the ancient world took notice. Aristotle, in his observations of animals, distinguished Molossian dogs from lighter hunting breeds and noted their guarding abilities. They had a reputation, not as decorative animals, not as swift hounds, but as powerful protectors. And this is where modern imagination tends to run wild. When people hear ancient war dog, they picture something enormous, a 220-pound monster smashing into enemy lines like a living battering ram. But history is usually more practical than myth. Most modern estimates suggest the Molossus likely weighed somewhere between 90 and 120 pounds. Large, yes, intimidating certainly, but built for endurance rather than exaggeration. Think about what that terrain required. A dog that heavy but not overly bulky could patrol mountain slopes, confront wolves, and move with stamina. Too much mass would have slowed it down. Too little strength would have meant disaster. If you stood one next to a modern English Mastiff, which today commonly weighs between 120 and 230 pounds, you probably notice the difference immediately. The modern Mastiff is broader, heavier, often more massive through selective breeding for size and visual impact. The Molossus, by contrast, would likely appear leaner, more athletic, still powerful, but functional. It wasn't bred to impress a judge. It was bred to survive. In Greece, the Molossus served several purposes. First and most importantly, it guarded livestock. This role is the most historically grounded and least debated. These dogs protected flocks in predator-heavy regions and became known throughout the Greek world for it. They also guarded estates. A large Molossian dog outside a noble's home was more than security. It was a statement. Power has always liked visible symbols, and a massive guardian dog at the entrance to your property sends a message that doesn't require translation. And then there's war. We have to tread carefully here, because ancient records don't read like modern military archives. There are no surviving rosters listing Molossus units deployed in named Greek battles. Ancient historians weren't always concerned with cataloguing canine divisions, but we do know that Molossian dogs were widely recognized for their strength and ferocity. And we know something far more concrete. When Rome conquered Epirus in 168 BCE, they took these dogs with them. Rome had a habit of absorbing what worked: weapons, engineering techniques, religious practices, and animals. After their conquest, Roman forces transported Molossian-type dogs back to Italy. There, they became part of Roman breeding programs. Over time, the Romans refined these large guardian dogs into something more specialized: a combat animal. This dog became known as the Canis Pugnax. The name translates directly to fighting dog. Unlike the original Molossus, which had been shaped by mountains and livestock, the Roman version was shaped by warfare. Historical sources, including agricultural writer Columella and various Roman military accounts, confirm the use of large dogs for guarding camps and participating in combat contexts. Roman war dogs were used to protect encampments. They were deployed for intimidation. Some accounts describe the use of spiked collars. And while modern reconstructions sometimes exaggerate armor usage, protective equipment for dogs in warfare is historically plausible. Roman campaigns in Britain mention the presence of powerful war dogs. Though detailed battle-by-battle documentation is rare, multiple ancient sources confirm that dogs played roles in Roman military life, both as guardians and as instruments of psychological warfare. By this stage, the Molossus had evolved. It was no longer simply a mountain guardian from Epirus. It had become part of the Roman war machine. And Rome, unlike Epirus, didn't stay contained. As the empire expanded, so did its dogs. From Italy into Gaul, into Britain, across Germania, into frontier territories along the Rhine and Danube. Wherever Roman soldiers settled, their working animals followed. Over centuries, these Molossian-type dogs mixed with local working breeds. Regional variations emerged. Some were used as drover dogs, moving cattle along trade routes. Others became estate guardians. Some maintained military roles. From this slow blending process, the ancestors of many modern Mastiff breeds began to take shape. The Cane Corso in Italy is often considered one of the closest modern relatives to the Roman fighting dogs. The English Mastiff in Britain likely developed in part from continental Molossian imports blended with native large dogs. In Germany, Roman drover dogs contributed to the lineage of breeds like the Rottweiler. Even the Great Dane traces ancestry through European Molosser types shaped by Roman expansion. The very word Molosser comes from the Molossians of Epirus. Yet somewhere along the line, the original Molossus disappeared. Not in a dramatic extinction, not in a recorded final sighting, but through dilution. After Rome absorbed Epirus, breeding programs expanded. Dogs were crossed, adapted, modified for new climates and new purposes. By the early Middle Ages, somewhere between 500 and 800 CE, the original Molossus likely no longer existed as a distinct breed. It had blended into the evolving Mastiff populations of Europe. The name faded. The influence did not. And this brings us back to size, because size is where myth often overshadows history. The Molossus was almost certainly not a 230-pound giant. It was likely closer to 90 to 120 pounds. Large enough to confront wolves, strong enough to deter threats, but agile enough to function in mountain terrain. The modern English Mastiff outweighs it because human priorities changed. Ancient breeders valued endurance, courage, and work capacity. Modern breeding sometimes prioritizes mass and visual impact. Different eras, different needs, but the same foundational type. Today, if you look at a Mastiff standing calmly at a gate, if you watch a livestock guardian position itself between its flock and a perceived threat, if you see that quiet, steady confidence in a large guardian breed, you're seeing an echo of a dog that once patrolled the mountains of Epirus, a dog shaped by wolves and war, a dog taken by Rome and carried across an empire. The Molossus may not have a breed standard anymore, No registry lists it. No pure specimen remains. But its legacy is everywhere. And every time a Mastiff stands its ground, without flinching, there's a trace of that ancient mountain guardian still there, steady, watchful, and unafraid. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and suggest any ideas for future videos on your favorite dogs. See you soon!